A collagraph is a printmaking process which was introduced in 1955 by Glenn Allops. The word is derived from the Greek word kala, meaning glue, and graph, meaning the activity of drawing. This is a process where one can apply flattened objects or marks on a flat board to create texture. They tend to be monoprints, which are one of a kind in terms of size of paper, the board, matrix, color, and production. You will use found resources which are collected in your environment. The plate can be inked as an intaglio or with a brayer or paintbrush or in combination therefore. You can use sandpapers, textiles, anything that is flat. You will first cut up your chipboard to size. The cardboard must be heavy weight so that it does not tear over time, as well as must be flat and not corrugated. Then you will glue the objects to the board so that they are flat and will not come off during printing. Here you'll find everything that I use to make a collagraph. I use my brayer to ink with, spoon to print. I also have another little spoon, a toothbrush to print with as well, my ink, masking tape, my addition paper, my registration board, and here are a variety of boards that I have made. Anything that is above the surface will ink up. Whatever is below the surface will not. In this situation with the glove, it is very moving and it will actually kind of create a blurred effect because it's multiple layers of fabric. First, I'm going to apply a ribbon to my palette. So I'm taking out ink from the tube. Then I'm going to take my palette knife and make sure that it is mixed well. If the ink is dry, you can add a little bit of water to it. Now I'm going to ink up the palette. And notice that I'm going back and forth with my brayer. That way that I will have an even coverage across the brayer, resulting in a good printing. If you do not have enough, you can add more. So when you're mixing your colors, make sure you make more than what you think you'll need. Every time you ink up, it's going to take the ink off of the palette, so then you'll have to keep adding more ink as time goes on. One of the things you should look for is an even inked surface, as I've talked about before. Now I'm going to ink up my first board. This one was made with hot glue. Because hot glue is not very forgiving in terms of it's stiff, it's harder to ink. The harder you push, the more ink comes off. Every time you put down ink, you need to regenerate the brayer with more ink. Also, you'll need to build up your boards, meaning the first one will always be the lightest. Usually I find I do 3 tests on newsprint before I go onto my good paper. Here I'm putting down my registration board. Notice I have a piece of tape in the middle. That's to hold the collagraph flat. I'm going to grab my paper. This is masa paper. It's very, very lightweight. Remember, the fibrous side is the side in which you want to print on. I push down with my hand. Now I'm pushing down with the spoon. Notice I'm using the whole surface of the spoon. You can use the top of the spoon too, like the tip of it, when you want to go in and get certain areas. You can see as I'm pushing, I can see the the ink from the other side coming through. Now I'm pulling it off. Just, just to check. I don't take it off the entire board. I just peek to see if I need to use the spoon over the surface more. And I've just printed that one. I decide to move on to another one. I'm going to use one with fabric. Now, since fabric is porous, you're going to need to build it up over time. So again, I would make a couple of test prints first, then go to your good paper. I always make sure that my newsprint is torn down to the same size as my edition paper, because then I know when I'm using the registration board, everything is going to align perfectly. Notice I'm using both of my hands to push down, so I have a lot of pressure. And every time I put down the ink, I have to then again go back to the palette and ink up the brayer. I put the brayer facing rubber side up. It's basically to protect your brayer so the rubber doesn't condense, as well as it keeps your surface clean. I put a piece of tape again down so that it will hold the board in place. I'm now using a toothbrush to go in and kind of get details. This is a really nice way of bringing out texture. You can also use a paintbrush. I just like the toothbrush because I can really work into the surface. You can also use different colors if you want to. Just make sure you use, you're very careful at applying the ink. What's nice about putting duct tape around the registration board is that you can wipe it off so that it's clean when you print. Now I'm going to use a piece of tracing paper, and that's just because I'm going to start building up my image area. Also, it's nice because then all of you can see exactly what it looks like in the video. So you can see now I have a lot of ink on that. I'm using my hand to push down, again using the spoon. And you can see really it's coming through quite well. I'm probably going to go back and I'm going to use my little spoon or the tip of my spoon so that I can really get into the areas of all the lace patterning. Don't forget the edges and the corners. That's very typical. I like to start in the middle and then work my way out, and then make sure I always hit all of the sides. Now I'm using my little spoon just to get more out of the texture. So again, this is a relief process. Whatever is above the surface is what we'll print. And there you go. And now I can keep going and make my next print.